we make that is referred to as wound salve, which is good for any kind of wound except for puncture wounds. It's good for lacerations, cuts, any kind of open wound. It's also good for internal wounds. If it's given to an animal, they can ingest it and assist with the healing of internal wounds. The components of this salve or liniment, if you don't put the beeswax in it, then you end up just with the liniment, which is the same thing. We have chaparral, which is antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal. It grows in the Southwest predominantly. Lavender is an anti-inflammatory. It's also a calmative, and it is also antibacterial. Comfrey is one of the more powerful herbs for helping the body regenerate its cells and knit bones and anything where the cellular compounds of a body need to be rebuilt. Comfrey is one of the main herbs for that. This here is yarrow. Yarrow helps to stop bleeding, amongst many other things. It's also antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal. But one of the main reasons I put it in this salve is that it stops bleeding and hemorrhaging. Calendula is good for skin rebuilding and any kind of burns. Calendula is good for many different things, but this is in to piggyback with the comfrey and also to bring assistance into any kind of burn situations. Then we have St. John's wort, which is for the nervous system predominantly, and so that helps rebuild any kind of nerves if there's nerve damage. So those are the components. Here we have beeswax balls, that if you're going to go from the liniment form to a salve, you can use the beeswax. I like to use these balls better than bricks because it's easier to melt. And then we just use olive oil as the base. Then you can put, once it's complete, you can put vitamin E in or tincture of benzoin for the preservatives. To keep the salve strong for a lengthy period of time. But because this particular salve has all these components that are antiviral and such, that creates a natural preservative base anyways. So those are the components, and then we'll show you how to make it. Okay, so when we're making the salve, what you do is you measure the weights of the different herbs that you're going to be putting in, and then you cook them. Whatever that adds into, it's going to be a ratio of 1 to 4 to the base that you're creating the salve in. So if the herbs add up to 6 ounces, this is more like 8, then you're going to put 32 ounces minimum of oil into the salve to cook it. Now I oftentimes put a little bit more in if the herbs are bulkier, and if I'm going to cook it for a long time, I'll put a greater amount of oil in. So I kind of intuit how much oil to put in when I'm cooking, but the main base is 1 to 4. Okay, I'm going to spill this all up. So I'm going to just go ahead and put all these herbs in the pot, and use a metal pot or a glass pot. Don't use anything with Teflon on it to be cooking. Okay, then we scoop that in, and you need to. All right, so we're looking at that as basically 8 to 10 ounces of herbs. So we're going to be putting in 40 ounces of oil. This is a 2-cup measure, which is 16 ounces. And just pour it on in. Now the main thing to remember when you're cooking is that olive oil burns at a very low temperature. So you have to keep the burner on low, very low, and we're going to cook the salve for 3 hours, very low, and then you stir it about every 10 minutes or so with a wood spoon. You can also use crock pot. Some people use crock pots to cook the salves in. So that eliminates the concern of burning the oil. Okay. All right. Since some of the herbs that we're putting in this are a little bit thirsty, I'm going to put a little extra oil in, so I'm putting in 48 ounces instead of 40 here. So I've got that in, and then I'm just going to stir that, and then we'll put it on the stove to cook at a low burn, and that's basically it for 3 hours. So once you have it on the burner, and again, remember to keep it at a low burn, you want to keep an eye on the oil and make sure that it doesn't boil or simmer heavily. Just keep it at a very low perk so that you can see a boil here or there, but you don't want it to be actively bubbling. And then you just come in and just stir it every once in a while. Make sure that all the herbs are getting stewed up together and that the essence of the herbs are intermixing in the oil. And then, you know, it is kind of messy, so make sure you have someplace to put the spoon. And that's it. Set your timer for 3 hours, and then when the 3 hours are up, we'll get the herbs out of the oil and either keep it as a liniment and put the preservative in, or put the beeswax in and make it into a salve. All right. So what we're demonstrating here, Ishtane quite a while ago had a big lesion on her leg that she got sliced open by some barbed wire when it was we were hiking out in the snow, and she did have to have this leg stitched up. It was a big horseshoe laceration, and so what I did as part of the healing is I would use the wound salve, except in a liniment form, and put that on the wound, and then do a typical conventional wrap on top of that with the gauze tissue having the salve in it. Now again, this salve has yarrow, comfrey, calendula, chaparral, St. John's wort, and lavender in it, and it helps with the healing and the regeneration of the tissue. And so most of the hair is grown back in, but she still has some bareness to where the worst part of the laceration was, so I'm still putting the wound salve, the liniment, on it. Now, one thing also that I allow with this particular herbal combination is that a lot of animals, as part of their healing process, actually like to drink it and take it on a systemic level. And you want some of that? And they know whether or not it's good for them. And so I always offer it, and dependent upon what the herbs are inside the blend, the animals oftentimes like to have some to drink. And you want some more? No, that's enough today. So she just wanted a little bit today. Yeah. There you go. It's just a bad position. So she's sitting up so she can do this. And years ago, Ishtane was hit by a car and had massive, massive damage to her body, organs, and her musculoskeletal system. And she consumed enormous amounts of the wound salve in that case internally, which helped with her internal bleeding, and it helped with her whole body's healing process. So I would give it to her in handfuls, and she ate just an enormous amount of it, and I used that in conjunction with homeopathic remedies, and I do have a case study written up on that. But Ishtane is very wise, and most animals will help themselves to things that they need if you offer it to them. They'll know whether or not their life force and their healing essence needs that kind of assistance. So our job is to, as a facilitator, is to provide them with what they need, the different tools. And this wound salve is just amazing for animals and people. All right? Don't try to not have my foot in there if you can.
Oh, we already started.
Oh, sorry. Hello. All right, so what we're talking about here is one of the main things with doing emergency care and trauma recovery is to create a baseline of wellness and familiarity with your animals and with your own body. Know what your normal state is so that when something is off, you can recognize it. And this can go from an illness to having an injury. And with animals, I always, especially in the spring, we have so many things in bloom, stickers abound, we have ticks, we have just all kinds of things going on. So I always, when we have gone out exercising, or just at least once a day, if not twice, I spend time sitting with my animals, cats, dogs, horses, it doesn't matter, and rubbing them and just checking to see how their bodies feel, see if there's any foreign objects present, and clearing anything out of their fur, their hair that is not supposed to be there. looking for things, for ticks, looking for any other kinds of things that could be problematic. Like right now I'm finding a sticker back here in her hair. These things, there's so many seed pods coming out right now, and if the animals get them up in their hair and then you don't get them out, they can, what are you choking on? They can get embedded in their skin and drill holes, and then they come up in their bodies and travel. Bedroom door's gonna slam shut. Yeah. So I found 2 different stickers in her hair, and just by rubbing down. Earlier I found a whole lot more, and Ishtan, come here. But also one of the things I checked with Ishi, because of her getting hit by that car a few years ago, I checked to see how her body is aligning, how her shoulders are feeling, if she's got correct movement in her body, if there are any muscles or tendons or ligaments that require assistance in their movement. And I do as much of that in one sitting as she will allow me to, but when she's done, then I have to let her go. So I let her get up and move around. But it's really important to understand what a natural state, what a wellness state is for your animals. So to observe them in a sitting state, walking state, running state, all these things, so you can see what is going on with their bodies, whether or not they're well, whether or not there's something bothering them. So it's important to be present with them and be in a state of observation, which is something that animals teach us so vividly, is to be in a state of present observation and witnessing what is going on every moment. And then by doing that, you can head off problems down the road that just because you weren't paying attention. So always pay attention, listen. If the animals or your body are telling you that there's something off, then the best thing that you can do is stop and pay some time with it, see what can be done to bring yourself back into balance, bring your animals back into balance, and that is the best thing to prevent something more heavy duty happening down the road. Okay?